class video, and thank you for purchasing your pool from Prestige Pools and Spas. This video is going to spend some time talking about the chemicals that need to go into your pool, why they need to go into your pool, and what they're going to do for your pool water, and how to keep your water maintained so that it's healthy, clean, and ready for swimming at any given time when you have people over. So again, thanks for purchasing your pool with Prestige Pools and Spas, and let's start talking about some chemicals. This is going to go over the chemistry and why, as I said before. The goal of your water chemistry is to protect swimmers, to protect your pool surfaces, your liner, your concrete surface, your equipment, your plumbing, your bathers, to make the water look nice and clean, so that you don't have a pond in your backyard. You have a nice, beautiful looking swimming pool so that at any time somebody wants to hop in, the water's ready to go. So we're going to talk about the chemicals and all of these requirements and set numbers and measurements are recommended by the Association of Pool and Spa Professionals, which is a group of pool companies all working together to make sure that people that have swimming pools have a safe, healthy environment to swim in. That you're going to be testing for on a regular basis is your sanitizer, your chlorine level, your pH, your alkalinity, your salt reading, and your chlorine stabilizer. The ideal readings for each of these, chlorine, you want to have between 1 and 4 parts per million. That is a healthy, safe amount of chlorine to have in the water that keeps algae at bay. pH needs to be between 7.4 and 7.8, where 7.6 is your ideal number. Alkalinity, you want to be anywhere between 80 and 120 parts per million. Of course, 100 is your target goal there. And then your salt, which we'll talk about in the salt video, that will also come with this in your welcome email. It needs to be between 28 and 35 ideally. The range in the salt video will be a little bit different, but I'll explain that when I get to the salt video. So the first thing I want to talk about is sanitizers. Sanitizers are exactly what you think about. We've used them in our daily lives. You get the sanitizer, you put it on your hands, it kills bacteria. It helps keep your pool water healthy and safe. Now, there's many sanitizers out on the market. There's biguanide systems, there's chlorine salt systems, there's chlorine tablet systems. You in particular have gotten a salt system. Why is salt better? I do go over this a little bit more in the salt video, but it's a softer, more pure form of chlorine, so it doesn't have that smell and that feel. You don't have to worry about chlorine tablets and the fumes. I don't know if you've ever opened a bucket of chlorine tablets, but it'll about knock you on your feet doing that. Next thing that I want to talk about is pH. pH is very important in your pool because that keeps your chlorine working the most effective that it can. So 7.6 is where you want to go, and the reason that they've chosen that number 7.6 for the pH level is that is the pH of the average human eyeball. So if you've ever heard of people say, oh, I went swimming at so-and-so's pool and the chlorine level was really high, and I got out, my eyes were all red and irritated and itchy, that was because the pH was off. It's not so much the chlorine level of the pool. Chlorine is naturally high in pH, so when you have a high chlorine content in a pool, the pH is usually not in line. It's gone really high too, and that's what's irritated the eyes. So pH is very important. You want to keep that right in that range of 7.4 to 7.8, where 7.6 is ideal. And remember that these are all ranges, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be right at 7.6 all the time. As long as you're in that range, you're okay. Once you're out of that range, that's when we want to make the adjustment. So some of the things that can affect your pH and cause the pH to fluctuate, because it will do it some on its own. But the main things that affect your pH are, say you get a rainstorm that blows through, and puts a whole bunch of water. It's this pouring rainstorm. Well, that water is not going to be that water is not balanced. It's not balanced falling from the sky. It's going to change the pH of your pool. Same thing with when we get into the really hot part of the season, and you're constantly having to go out and put the hose in the pool to top it off because kids are using it. There's some splash out. We're losing some water. you've just done a good backwash and rinse, that flushed some water out, or it's just been really hot and the pool's just evaporating. You got to fill it back up again. That tap water's again not balanced. That's why whenever you fill your pool in the beginning of the season, you have to adjust all these numbers again because the numbers have all changed. So we want to get those numbers back to where they're supposed to be. So we want to keep the pH. Next thing we're going to talk about is alkalinity. Think of alkalinity as like the bodyguard for pH. So it keeps pH from changing as much. So remember I said that pH can change on its own. Well, it tends not to do that as much if your alkalinity is in line. So if you have a healthy pH and you have a healthy chlorine level, but your alkalinity is out, you may go out and measure it one day and the pH may be fine, but the next day, because the alkalinity is not correct, the pH may have gone off the chart high or low, or might just be slightly out of line. That now affects the chlorine. So it's a whole domino effect. You want to keep all your chemistry in line because each one plays an important role in the other ones. Now, down at the bottom here, we're talking about pH and alkalinity and how to make the adjustments. So this is an important rule of thumb. And the easiest way to remember this is whichever one is higher, you lower that one first. So always go down and then bring your levels back up. So if you have a high alkalinity and a low pH, you're going to lower the alkalinity and then raise the pH to get that level right. And the reason that you do this is the chemical that lowers alkalinity is the same chemical that lowers pH. They're not two different products. There's one product to go down, there's two products to go up. So you always want to lower first and then raise, and that will take care of getting you in balance. Otherwise you'll have that whole fight of like, I adjusted this one, now that one's out. Now I adjusted this one, now that one's out. That's not a lot of fun. Nobody wants to. The next thing is the superchlorinate. Now what this does is this gets a spike of chlorine into the water. It knocks the used chlorine out. When chlorine is used up, it renders itself inert and becomes a chloramine. And to get these chloramines out, you're going to have to spike the chlorine level. And we do that using the superchlorinate function of your salt system. The old school way of doing it was when you had the tablet pools, was you brought out the buckets of shock, which was a powdered chlorine, and you threw that X number of scoops of that into the pool, and that raised the chlorine level. The salt system will do that, and we do talk about that when we do the Hayward salt system video, which I recommend you watch after you've watched this video because it'll make a lot more sense. The next thing that we want to talk about is your stabilizer. So I talked about this a little earlier. Chlorine stabilizer is very, very important in a saltwater pool. And the reason being is the things that burn off chlorine are heat, sunlight, and bather load. Those are the three main things that burn off your chlorine. So when the weather is really hot, you're going to get a lot of use and there's a lot of sun, and so your chlorine's getting burned off before it can do its job of keeping your pool clean. Stabilizer is like a sunscreen for chlorine, so it protects the chlorine from the heat and the sun. So therefore your chlorine can stay around a little easier. And why it's so important in a saltwater pool is because it is a pure form of chlorine that we're generating. It doesn't have any stabilizing agent in it. So stabilizer is very important. In a tablet pool, the little tablets that you put into the pool every so often as they wore out had a little bit of stabilizer built into them. So every time you replaced a tablet, it was adding a little bit of stabilizer to the water. In a salt system, because it's a pure form of chlorine, you want to make sure that your stabilizer is really good. Now, the important thing about adding stabilizer is it's extremely tough to dissolve. It's a very slow dissolving product. So what you want to do with it to get it to dissolve faster is to add your stabilizer very slowly into the skimmer. So you don't have to take the basket out or anything. You're just going to pour it real slowly, sprinkle it, watch it go down, sprinkle it, watch it go down until it's now into the filter system. And the reason we're doing that is there's a lot of water flow in the filter system, and that helps dissolve the stabilizer faster. Now, the important thing about doing that is when you pour the stabilizer into your skimmer and it's now sitting in your filter media, whether that be your sand or your cartridge or DE, whatever you have for a filter system, do not backwash, rinse, pull your filters out, or bump a DE system for at least 24 hours. I recommend 48. And the reason being is if you do that backwash and rinse, you're just taking your stabilizer and you're throwing it in the garbage. So it doesn't even have time to dissolve and get into your pool. You're just throwing it away. So you're just throwing out money, and that's no fun. Next things that we're going to talk about, these are helper chemicals. So they're not as important. You're not going to use them quite as much as you might on a, as far as adjustments. They're not going to affect your water chemistry in any serious way. But there are some times that you're going to need these helper chemicals, and it's going to depend on what chemical it is and what the reason is. First one I want to talk about is Stain and Scale, Stain-X, or Ascorbex. Now, these are the names of the products that we sell. They may be known by other names out there, but they are metal removers. So what they do is if you've got a pool and you've had it for a long period of time, you may notice that your nice white steps or your white face plates going around your skimmers, they kind of get this yellowish, brownish color to them. It's not just because they're old. What's happened over a long period of time is the metals that are in water have deposited themselves on these white surfaces. So it tends to make them look real dingy and gross looking. So Stain and Scale is kind of like your maintenance dose product. Stain-X is a product that will remove the metals and flush them into the filter so that when you next time you clean your filters out, it gets rid of the metals. It's a little more slow moving than the Ascorbex. The Ascorbex is going to instantly remove that stain. However, it does not get rid of the problem. It just takes those metals off of those surfaces and resuspends them back in the pool water. So if you don't use a Stain-X or a Stain and Scale in conjunction with Ascorbex or ascorbic acid, the stains will come back in short order within a few days. So make sure that you're using that. So Stain-X, that is like, hey, you go out, you notice your steps are a little dirty. I'm going to put some Stain-X in the pool. I've got a couple of days. Nobody's coming over. I don't have to impress anybody. The Stain-X will do it a little more slowly. The Ascorbex is instant, but it doesn't get rid of the problem. So we want to use a Stain-X or a Stain and Scale afterwards to sequester those metals, get them into the filter. Next thing I want to talk about are two products that we carry called Majestic Blue and Pool First Aid. These are clarifiers. So I like to think of them as kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. They're a little bit of a Stain and Scale remover. They're a little bit of this. They're a little bit of that. They are good for a weekly basis. Putting them into the pool, small doses on a weekly basis, they'll kind of help keep your water chemistry clean and clear. The Pool First Aid is a little bit stronger and it does a little bit different. It's a natural enzyme that would dissolve things. So if you're early on in the season and you're having an issue with that oak pollen, that green pollen that gets all over everything in the springtime, and you can't vacuum that up because every time you get near it with the vacuum it just flitters away, the Pool First Aid is an enzyme that will eat those pollens and help keep the pool clean a little bit easier. They're also both of these are really good if you're having issues with really cloudy water. You can pour these products in and they will help eat or help the system get rid of the things that are causing the cloudiness, but they're not going to solve it totally. There's usually some other things that you've got to take care of in conjunction with them. Next thing we're going to talk about is algae. Algae in a pool. Everybody hates it. It's green, it's pink, it's white, it's yellow, it comes in different colors, brown, black. There are different algae out there. Algae is an airborne spore, so it's very, very hard to keep it out of your pool. Short of having an indoor pool and making sure that your water chemistry is good and perfect all the time, algae is going to get into your pool. Now, the other thing to remember about algae is just a plant. So if you're going to have people over and there's a little bit of algae kind of in a corner out of the way somewhere, or even if the whole pool was greenish in color and there were some good algae blooms in there, it's just a plant. It's not going to hurt anybody. Yes, we have this stigma where it's a swimming pool and we need it to be blue, blue, blue. That's what we're looking for in our swimming pools. The thing to remember also about algae is it occurs naturally, so it grows in lakes, rivers, streams, creeks, ponds. People swim in these all the time. Algae is not going to hurt you, but we want to try and keep it out of the pool. So that's going to be done by keeping your water chemistry in check. And even then, sometimes if you get an algae bloom, you can use something that's called an algicide. There's different ones on the market. I do recommend that you don't use a copper-based algicide because these can cause foaming. Just in general, you're also putting metals into the pool, which can cause the stains to show up, that we were talking about earlier with the stain and scale. So let's stick to the algicides that are not copper-based. There's other ones on the market. They're a little bit more expensive, but they do a better job. Also, to make sure that you're doing proper brushing of the pool sides. If you ever get an algae bloom, you want to brush it ever so lightly, and then use either an algicide or a heavy dose of shock, depending on how much green you've got in the pool or how much algae you've got in the pool, to get rid of it. The next thing I want to talk about is total hardness. So this is calcium hardness. This is an important number in a pool. We need a certain amount of calcium in the water to help protect the pool's surfaces. Now, it's more important in some pools than in others. So if you're a concrete pool, calcium hardness is way important. Make sure that you're monitoring that, because that will leach the calcium from the walls of your pool, causing the nice pool walls to crumble and fall apart a little faster, to where you have to get the surfaces redone on your concrete pool. It's not quite as important on a fiberglass pool or a vinyl liner pool, but we still want to keep some calcium in the water to help protect the equipment. Next thing that you want to do, make sure you test your pool regularly. You've got to be doing it at least once a week. That's going to be that will help keep the pool maintained. If you turn around and walk away, I know you got a salt system, and the salt system makes things easier, but if you turn around and walk away and forget about your pool and don't take care of that water chemistry, it's going to turn on you. You're going to have a hassle of trying to get it cleaned up. It's no fun. So make sure you check your water once a week. I also do recommend that you go once a month to a pool professional. Have them test the water. There are some things that they can test for with their systems that you can't test for at home, or may not need to test for at home. But we also, it also helps make sure that you're, gives you a little peace of mind. Make sure that you're doing the job that you think you are and taking care of the pool. The next thing I want to talk about is to keep your pool and filter clean. So you get a good rainstorm, debris blows into the pool. I know I mentioned it earlier, leaves, sticks, stuff blows into the pool. That now gives the chlorine more work to do, because chlorine is going to attack biomatter. It is indiscriminate as to what this biomatter is. So if it's a bacteria, if it's an algae, if it's a leaf, if it's a frog, whatever may have gotten into your pool, make sure that your pool stays clean and clear as much as possible. Make sure that you're vacuuming your pool on a regular basis. Don't let things start to collect down at the bottom, because that's going to make your chlorine have to work on that, and it's not going to work as well on cleaning your water. Also, make sure that you're backwashing and rinsing your filter on a normal basis. If you have a sand filter, if you have a cartridge filter, you pull your cartridges out and clean them off. With a DE filter, you would bump the system. Make sure that those are cleaned on a regular basis, because that also helps maintain your pool clarity. Now, those filter systems, they're great. They're going to help keep the water clean, but they're not going to do it by themselves. Water chemistry is very important. Also, make sure you're cleaning out your skimmer baskets and that basket in your pump. That's the one known as the hair and lint pot in the industry. But both of those baskets on occasion will need to be emptied. Remove them out, and then also clean off your pool deck. Hose off your pool deck, spray things away from the pool so that things don't get washed into the pool the next time you get a rain. Final things that I want to talk about is, again, I've gone over the take your pool water to a professional to have it analyzed. Have a day a week that you go out, Sunday morning or whatever, whatever your schedule allows. Have a day that you go out and you take care of your pool, and you make this part of your weekly routine when the pool is open. Hey, I'm going to go out every Sunday and I'm going to vacuum and I'm going to clean. It's a pool. It's supposed to be fun. There's going to be some work to it. There's no getting away from that. But if you just give it 1 day a week, or after a heavy rainstorm, or you've just had a big party, that's the best time to take care of those. Also, the appearance of clear water doesn't necessarily mean that it's clear and safe to swim in. Just because the water looks good doesn't mean those numbers on your pH, alkalinity, chlorine levels doesn't mean they're right. It may be clean and clear now, but tomorrow you could wake up to a whole different pool. If you ever have any questions, you're more than welcome to call us. Bring us at least an 8-ounce sample of water. We test water for free. There's no charge for it. We've had plenty of experience in water chemistry and taking care of pools. Or if you just want to pop a quick question, it's a day we're closed or it's after hours, you can email water@prestigepoolsandspas.com. We'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can, get you an answer, help take care of that pool for you. If you have any questions, feel free to call us or email us at any time. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you understand a little bit more about your chemistry now.